Alright guys, welcome back to the shop. So we're all done with the second side rail here, and it is by far the most beautiful piece of wood that has ever come through my shop. Just all the figure to it, the grain patterns, the light tan shades that you get in this walnut is just amazing. I mean, the other one looks pretty good. It's a fairly muted tone compared to this one, but yeah, this is just an absolutely beautiful piece of wood, and it's so cool that I get to keep it in its solid form for this whole side rail. So it's looking real good. So now all that's left to do is the headboard and the footboard. We got to cut off the dowels, get all those areas cleaned up. We'll do a little bit of finish sanding just because things got a little bit banged up during the glue up. Then we'll also clean up the leather that I attached to the feet of the headboard and the footboard. That should go pretty quick because we already got both of those hand sanded all the way up to 180 grit, which is exactly where we want to be. So it's just going to be touching on those areas where there's a little bit of glue squeeze out, and other than that, it shouldn't be too challenging overall. So before we jump in and start doing all the finishing work here, I actually want to make the plugs that are going to go in here, because what we can do when we start doing our finishing work is we can make sure that these plugs sit nice and flush, so we can put them in place, sand over them, hand clean over them, what do we need to do to make sure they're actually sitting in here. Okay, so I don't know how many of these little things that I have made so far today, but I'm still struggling to figure out what kind of a design I want to go for on them. So my first variant is this guy here, and it was meant to be a press fit in, but I just put too much of an angle on it, so that one didn't work. The second idea was this guy here, so it's a little bit of a press fit and also has a magnet in the bottom so that when you drop it in, it sticks in. Now it's not fitted up to this hole, which is why you can see it's actually horrible fit. It's actually fit up for the other side and was working pretty good, and I was fairly happy with it. Until I made 4 more trying to copy this style, and they were all wrong. I screwed up on them completely. They had way too much sapwood in them. Then I made this one, and I got a pretty good press fit into it, to the point where I can push it in, and now that we've gone through and flushed it up and sanded it, it sits really nicely in there, and all you have to do is just press it in. The trick that I'm running into now is I don't know how to make it so you can get these things out. Because on this one, I cut a little pry hole, so you could put a flathead screwdriver in there and pop it out. But that ends up damaging the leg and the area around it. On this other one, I decided I wanted to try just drilling a 1/8 hole, then using a Allen key that's under 1/8 of an inch. All you have to do is kind of wobble it out, and it comes out quite nicely. The only trick is that it does kind of elongate the hole, so it doesn't look as great. But I think between these two options, I think that the hole overall does look better than having this slot, because I still don't have a good way to cut this slot nice and centered on the piece, plus keeping it square. So that is where I like this small little pinhole here, because I do think that overall is going to be the best option. And then if I can get all of them to be this nice pressed fit, then at least you just press them in, and then when you want to take them out, you just have to get an Allen key or something that's under 1/8 of an inch round, and you just kind of wiggle them out, and then they pop right out. So I think that's the fit that I'm going to go for. I think the little hole is going to be the best option. The only real trick here is getting that press fit. That is very challenging to get just the right taper on here that you can actually get that press fit. This was kind of I just kind of stumbled upon this. Alright guys, so that is it. The headboard is cleaned up on both sides, and we are now, for the most part, done. So what I'm going to do now is get the shop cleaned up, get as much dust out of here as I possibly can. Then we're going to set up the bed in the back of the shop here. So I'm going to clear out the drum sander, just make some space around here so that I can actually walk around it with the door closed, because I want to be able to leave it set up overnight. Because then what we're going to do is we're going to do kind of a final check, just sanding some areas that look like they might need to be sanded. Going to run my hands over all the exposed edges, all that kind of stuff. Just looking for areas that need to be sanded and touched up. Because I'm sure that as I'm setting this up, we're going to bang it up a little bit. So then we can sand all that out, it'll be set up, and that's where we're going to do our finishing. So then my plan is to just leave it set up here for a couple days. I'm only planning to do 2 coats of tried and true oil on the bed here, because it's not really an area that's going to see a lot of heavy wear and tear like a tabletop. There's no need to do more than 2 coats of oil on it, and especially because we're doing the varnish oil, it's going to have a little bit of a harder surface anyway, so we should be just fine with only 2 coats. So that means if I can get a coat on today, let it cure, so then tomorrow I can come back into the shop, go over it with a maroon 3M pad, apply the second coat, then leave it, and we'll be done at that point. So over the weekend, I can just leave it set up in here. There's no issues. Then as for the video side of things, we'll just find some other project to work on. We'll find something nice and small. We won't start on the other big bed yet, because this bed is definitely still going to be in the way. So we'll find a nice small project to start that, it's just basically on the workbench. So now something nice and small. So let's clean the shop and get this thing set up, because we still haven't seen it with the side rails all finished up. I think it's going to look really awesome even compared to what we've seen already. So yeah, I'm excited to see how this looks. Let's just go for it. Alright guys, so that is the bed completed. I'm still going to do one more coat of oil tomorrow, just like we discussed earlier, but this is the bed completely finished. It's all together, it's nicely oiled. I've gone through and checked everything as best as I can. It's all nice and solid. This is a very heavy and very solid bed frame, and I'm super impressed with how good it looks. Every piece of walnut on here actually really surprised me. I knew that the one side rail was going to be absolutely beautiful, but I'm really impressed with the other one too. It came out looking just as good as that one. That one still is my favorite piece of whatever that's ever come to the shop. But every piece of walnut on here just looks so good once we put some oil on it. And yeah, it brought out all the figure, all the beautiful colors that are all hidden in walnut. It really does just speak for itself. The golden white oak combined with the walnut is just by far my favorite combination. It looks so good. So what I'm going to try and do right now is I'm going to open the garage door so I actually have some decent lighting in here. I'm going to take some B-roll footage of the bed frame in its finished form, and then I'll add that into this video. So if you guys want to see the bed when it's actually installed to its final position, which I'll be doing in a few days, you can check out the condensed version of this whole project. If you just skip to the very end of it, there'll be the little clip of what it actually looks like when it's fully installed, and also the ability to actually take pictures of it there. Because right now in the shop, I don't really have the ability to move around and take pictures and get video of all the different areas of this bed, because it's such a massive thing. My shop is not really set up for building king-size beds. But clearly I can do it, so that's the coolest thing. So anyway guys, I do hope you enjoyed this project. I do hope you enjoyed the upcoming B-roll. And as always guys, I do hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you in the next one.